So how do you get from one council to 2 to 24? That's been perhaps the biggest challenge. It's not really about the technology. It's only, as you know, it's about people. It's how do you create a good space, a good trusted space in which people can work together and deliver their best work, which we think about all the time. As you can see, it's growing really quickly, particularly at the end of beta. So huge numbers of expressions of interest, which is that yellow line, and a lot of them have joined by now and they're building. So you can see we've had to do a lot of thinking. There have been step changes in our growth. We've had to think at each point about how we're going to handle this new group of councils coming in. So right back to the very start, we were one council. We were Brighton and Hove. I worked there. We built a website in Drupal. Brighton had a track record of Drupal. There was very little to it. It was run in an agile way using Scrum-based teams, and that's all absolutely fine. We all know how that works. And the challenge came when you turn that into 2. So I was working at Brighton. I got a job at Croydon, and Croydon said, "Can we build a website?" To which I replied, "I've already built one down the road, and you really must have a look at what they've done. So let's not do this again. You know, the same stuff over and over again." So the bosses from those 2 councils got in touch, and this governance model was literally a handshake. There was nothing more to it than that, and I don't think it needed to be. The teams needed to know each other. They needed to stay in touch, but they didn't really need any rules of engagement, because a lot of people knew each other, and that worked very well together. We're well beyond this now, but at the beginning, friendship and collaboration and trust was in these organizations already, which was great. By the time we were at, I think I'm trying to remember where we were, alpha or beta at this point, maybe the end of alpha. So with 8 councils, it changed significantly. There was still a lot of goodwill, but councils coming in needed, a lot of them said, we need a piece of paper to explain what this is, what we're actually getting ourselves into, and what our commitments are, and what LocalGov Drupal's commitments are. So we looked around in the software industry mainly, but elsewhere, and created this MOU document, which is available on our site. If you go to localgovdrupal.org/MOU, you'll find this document in full. And councils don't have to sign it. They can have the code free. It's all open source. They can go and do with that whatever they wish. But if they want to collaborate with us, we expect councils to sign this. It doesn't have to be a wet signature. So send us an email saying that you agree. It's fine. If you wanted to join our Slack channel before that, we wouldn't stop you. If you wanted to come into any of the meetings, we won't stop you. But if you want to actively collaborate with us, then you need to agree. We need some simple sort of rules of engagement. And this document is pretty lightweight. It doesn't commit them in terms of time or budget or anything. We're not going to come and say, well, you didn't spend 20 hours this week, so therefore you're out of the project. But it sort of sets how we expect how we expect to be treated, what we expect to work on. And this has been fantastic. I think if anything, we almost need like a sort of team code or a code of conduct or something. Not that we actually have ever needed one. It just feels like there's a companion document. This is for the organisations. What about the people? What about our values? We don't have that document, and maybe we need that. But we've managed so far without it. So that got us so far. So we're up to 24 councils now, and these kind of conversations started maybe at about 15 councils. So the problem is when you want to make a decision, 20 councils is too big to make a decision. A good number is sort of 5, 10 at an absolute max. And also, not everybody has got the same interest or the same sort of time commitment across a group that large. And the challenge is, we've said a few times, people say to us, if you don't turn up, decisions are made without you. And we absolutely want to avoid that. It's not how we run. It's not how we want to be seen. So this is based in the model that we run right now. So we have two big groups called a product group, which I run in a light touch way. This is a consensual thing, and I'll talk about that in a second. And a technical group, which whoever, right now it's the biggest supplier we use, Agile Collective. There's a guy there called Finn Lewis. He's a developer and a technical lead. He runs that. And then in the middle, we have a steering group and comms functions and things. If you click onto the next one, it describes what they do. So I'm basically interested in user needs and what we build. And councils bring their needs and bring prototypes, and that's what we talk about. We meet every fortnight. And the technical group does the same, but on the flip side, they're looking at all these things from a technical point of view. So they're interested in security and resilience and architectural decisions. And we all, there's crossover. So I go to the technical group as well. Finn comes to the product group. People can be members of as many groups as they like. There's no restriction. But the limiting factor is people's time. So you're not a member of everything. It doesn't. You can't possibly do that. And then at the centre, we've got a steering group, which is very much about growth and sustainability and not much else. Is this still doing what we all like, what we all want? Do we feel like when new councils join, they can actually join meaningfully, well, easily? Are we all happy doing what we're doing? That's what that group talks about. And then we have a comms function, because more and more we need to explain what LocalGov Drupal is around. It saves repeating ourselves, which we do a lot, sadly, but also talking about the benefits of the work, writing documentation for things that that need to be as easy as possible to follow. We need a dedicated comms function for that. And then the final one of this set of three, if you click on that, please. So the people who really make the decisions are in these little working groups around the bottom here. So if we ever do anything that's big, like a big new feature, or a new piece of work around a base theme, or we're going to do some new branding, or whatever that might be, or we're going to look at a new business model, whatever that might be, we'll make a working group for it. So that group will be given the power to make decisions about that particular subject. And I don't go to all of these, notionally being in charge of the whole thing as product lead. I don't go to all of them. Other people can make decisions because they're better placed to make those decisions than I am. They're more qualified, they've got more time, they're more interested than I am. And they will work through a particular problem, and they'll bring it back to whichever group they came from, and they'll basically say, this is what we've decided. And it works. I think this is about sociocracy. I think the next one. You click on Matt. Yeah. So I won't go through all of this, but it's very much, because sociocracy is the way that we work. We're learning as we go. It's still quite new to me as a system. There are some experts in sociocracy in the groups that we've set up. But it's about basically making circles, those ovals that we saw earlier, circles. And you've got a trusted team of people who have autonomy to make decisions for themselves. And there are connectors between these groups. So people, they're good at radiating information. Some people go to more than one. Decisions are made by consent. So is this thing good enough to try? And all of that process is really interesting. I won't go into it all right now. But it works really well with Scrum. It's about things being good enough to try. Let's move on. Let's try. Let's iterate as we go. These things work together really well. And if you go to that URL, it actually links out to a video on YouTube, which was a session that we ran when we talked about introducing sociocracy. Don't click on it now, Matt, because it will open up loads of other windows. But go and watch the video. It's about an hour long, and the whole thing is explained by Finn and Abby. Finn's obviously delivery lead. Abby was working with Finn as a consultant for us to explore this. It's a really nice talk for an hour, and it's definitely worth your time. So the working groups have, this is very brief, the working groups have a kind of overview when they're set up, what's our area of authority and who's in it. And then we keep minutes because we found that our future selves want to know what we've decided and why. It's really important that we minute the things that we do, but it's not overly complicated. It's just, let's keep a note of what we decided and some of the conversations that we have. So in the future, we can look back and we know why we've done a particular thing. So they're important, but they're very quick to sort of get together. These next 3 slides are just examples, so I won't really dwell on them for very long, but we did a base theme this way. It happened to be led by a supplier because they were best placed to run it, and built by that supplier, but we had 3 councils that were involved. So that was nice. I had a very specific aim and delivered on that aim. It was this group lasted for about 2 months, I think. This was a much bigger piece of work that a council said, actually, we quite like the workflow and permissions that you have in your system, but there's more we want to do. And we're launching our site soon. Can we get on with it? And we were like, yeah, by all means, you can do that. David Siddle was the person that ran it. He wanted to do it all along. And we said, okay, well, you get all the needs together, involve some councils. And in the end, he involved sort of 5 organisations that we all chipped in to the needs, and then we asked our supplier to build it. So that's a nice way of doing it as well. You work with the people and the kind of needs that you have at the time, and all the other councils got to hear about this. Were able to chip in if they wanted to. We included all this information on our fortnightly newsletter, so everybody got to know what was going on. We did a big show and tell sort of at the beginning, part way through, and at the end. So it was very easy to find out if you wanted to get involved. So this is a group that's going on right now. So it's only 2 councils, Brighton and Croydon, because they were the most interested. But this has really had no involvement from us at all, other than occasional conversations about where they're up to. And we want to see more of this kind of work. Councils should be able to go and form their own groups. Letting everyone else know that they're doing that, but form their own groups and build bits of functionality that they really need. And we're seeing more and more of this kind of work, which is great. And these working groups are improving all the time. So we see a win as we don't want to do this to councils as a supplier and one council doing it to all the others. It's very much about councils feeling confident, having the skills and the autonomy to go and do the things themselves. So things change from the beta team or the core team building them through time to councils leading and councils building. And we want to see more of this as time goes on, and it increases our resilience, our capacity to build. Everybody feels like they've got a stake, and then we'll get more value across all of the councils. So I'm flagging a little bit. Other things we're doing, newsletter, I mentioned, we're on Slack. We try to put all our important meetings on Thursday afternoons because that seems to be the time that people can make it. We're doing sort of one-off things like crowdsourcing a roadmap. So rather than say, here's what we're going to build for the next 12 months, we said to the councils, what have you already committed to build in your web publishing kind of world? Let's find a happy path through that. And so the commitments you've already made count towards the effort that we can use. And that's worked really well. It was the first time we tried that. And then this microsites group, I think, is that we just started is really interesting in that we've never built a big major feature with everybody before. So it's a real challenge of test of how this is going to work. 24 sets of needs. How much of that is common? How do we make sure everyone can be heard? How can we make decisions? How does that work? So we're testing what we've got to kind of destruction really to see how it works. Right now, it seems to be working. I'll tell you again in 3 months how that's working. So our view now is that we've got, with one lead council, we've gone about as far as we can go, and we need to be something limited or something CIC to grow the code, be the custodian of the code, and encourage more collaboration. it working? Oh yeah, sorry. And this thing might actually be bigger than LocalGov Drupal. So we've had ideas about other things that we would like to do. Now we're a group of 24. There are other things that we would like to do. They're not going to remove our focus from the thing that we're doing right now, but we don't want to rule out other opportunities. And we've talked to other funded projects about, is this something we can do together? Or is this structure we're creating something that works for both? We don't know yet, but it might well be we make a multi-purpose thing. It's probably not going to be called Open Source Software Limited, but with something, a name that we'll find, and it will allow us to do more things into the future. And why we're changing? Well, we're not a council. We're not built to deliver council services. We are becoming a custodian of code and collaboration. So we can't handle, or we shouldn't have to handle, local political changes, that we should have a single focus, that we should be able to quickly react to changing conditions. And if we have to hire somebody tomorrow, we should be able to do that. We have to generate, soon we'll have to generate running costs revenue for ourselves, because the local digital fund doesn't cover that. But there might be grant opportunities that one of the councils can go back to the fund for, and we'll talk about that, as and when that happens. And we think there's a cooperative model. So our Supplier Agile Collective is a co-op. It works really well. We think this is a co-op as well, and we'll set it up in a way that there's an equitable say across the board, because that reflects how we work, and we want a legal entity that reflects how we work. I won't go through all of this either, but Matt, you talked about kind of governance options. So if you click that link, you can have, I think you might have seen it already, but basically you can have all the benefit of all the work that we've done around all the different options that are possible and why you might pick one over another. If you follow that link, it's all there. It's like a timeline in Miro you can look at. And the next slide is basically the folks we had working with us, this is their recommendation, which I won't read out. It's basically, if you want to do something quick and easy, make yourself a limited, and in the articles talk about how you'll run in the articles of association, so that you are asset locked, that you're a co-op, that you make decisions in a particular way, and that should be enough. But you might want to say at a later date, or actually a community interest company is better, because it formally locks things, so as directors of the company, you wouldn't get dividends and things like that. I know it's further down the line. It is further down the line for us as well. There's another option that a few places have done. So the Cooperative Councils Innovation Network, which we've looked at a lot, and they're a really good bunch of councils. There are about 30 of them. They're a special interest group of the LGA, as is LOTI, the London Office of Technology. I think they're actually an interest group of, yeah, they are. And I think their budget's held by London councils. So you don't have to go the whole hog. We just think we need to, that we need to be, our own separate organisation with the ability to move in a direction that we need to move. We obviously with councils driving that. So the governance might look a little bit like this. So it's very similar to what we talked about before, but because we're legal, we need a board, and depending on what our overall scope is, we would appoint directors. But everything else largely would stay the same, because we know how we work and we like how we work. We would need to think more seriously about revenue generation, so we'd have to have biz dev functions that we don't have now. But largely everything else works in the way that we think works in the way it does now. This is the last bit, business planning. So what do we think this is going to cost? So right now, our best estimates, and if you get this copy of this slide deck, you can go and look at the sort of back of packet calculations, which is what we've got at the moment. But right now it's about £200,000 a year running costs, and that's actually quite a good service, that we could get by on, in which we're able to do some user research, we're able to build, we're able to do some product work, assure the platform, make sure it's secure, moving forward in a kind of slow way, but enough, to be honest. But we're thinking if we really want to build, if there are new features that we want to do, we probably need double that. The microsite's project budget is about £200,000. And if we're able to, if we want to do one of those a year, that's what we're looking at. Or if we're able to do that, spread that spend over a year, again, that's kind of what we're looking at. So it's about 200 is lights on and decent level of service. Another 200 to really build in the way that we want. And this is a mixed model. We've been looking at there are quite a few of these in the States, sort of actually quite old software co-ops that have been around since the 50s and 60s. Now, we didn't do software then, but that's what they do now. And the model they've seemed to have hit on is everybody paying a little. You know, everybody put something in the pot that you can afford. And it's a very broad, stable base of membership is, I think, where we need to be. And that's topped up with some grant funding occasionally, probably not directly to us, but maybe to a member council, and they build something that we all benefit from. And some consultancy, because I think we're getting to a point where we can advise others on this kind of work, and we can use that revenue to improve our product. You know, we've already been asked to help a few people, and we're helping them for free, but ultimately that could be a paid for service. So this is the cooperative councils model that I mentioned earlier. You can go to that link and go and have a look at how they do it. But they're basically saying for councils and suppliers, it's a kind of tiered structure based on your ability to pay, a base fee, and then a capped population, or a population percentage of population that's capped at 1,500, percentage of budget, and that's capped at 7,500. And Cumbria is paying the most, so my bosses were delighted about this. Other councils, I think the lowest council is Tamworth. They're paying about 1,400 a year. But it's based on our ability to pay, you know. And we've talked to quite a few councils. We've talked to all the new councils wanting to join, so they know what they're getting. No one said, "Oh, this is awful, we're walking away." We'll start sort of formal consultation on this very soon. We've already started talking to suppliers about it, and they're all going, "Yeah, count us in. Yeah, we're really up for this." There happen to be suppliers of a particular size who believe in agile working and open source, which is where we are. So I think we're knocking at an open door, really. And I don't know if that would apply in your circumstances, but everyone we've spoken to so far has said, yeah, this is looking good. And the combination of council and supplier membership fees will basically pay our running costs. So we're already on the way to where we need to be. We're thinking about member benefits. So last week we were writing a business plan, this is a page from it. You probably can't see what's on these tables, but it's one of those, you know, on a website, what are the things that you get for this particular tier? We've made one of those. And the top one is the council tier. They basically get everything, so it's one kind of thing. The supplier model, we think, it's maybe based on size. So there's like micro businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses. We're starting to think about that. And this is all going very well so far. And if this all works, based on the running costs we've got so far, we'll generate a massive surplus. And obviously, this is complete fantasy land, and it won't happen this way. If we were to generate a surplus of that kind, it would all go back into product development. You know, that's a given. But we're showing that from a low base with a growing membership fee, we're actually able to build up ahead of steam. It won't ever end up like this, but I think it's good to see these kind of graphs because it makes you feel happy for a time. I think we're almost done. Next one, yeah, that's it. So thank you for listening. I'm sorry I'm a bit infused with cold, but hopefully that's been useful. I'm very happy to answer any questions, or you can talk to us on Twitter or drop me an email, whatever you like.